You waited months for it. You signed the papers, you took the keys, you drove it off the forecourt smelling of fresh plastic and promise. And now, across Britain, people just like you are driving those same cars straight back to the dealership and asking for a way out. Brand new, barely used, returned. That is the puzzle I want to open with you today. Because the reason is not what you think. It is not the engine. It is not the paint. It is not even the price, though the price is part of it. Here is the answer, stated plainly, before I show you how I got there. The car did not fail. The car makers quietly removed the things that worked and replaced them with things that make money, and a growing wave of drivers has finally noticed. What they are reaching back toward is a simple principle that ruled the road for 80 years and was thrown away in less than a decade. I found the thread that ties all of this together buried in two places most people never look. One is a Swedish test from August of 2022 that nobody in the car adverts wants you to read. The other is a rule change from a safety body in Europe that takes effect in January of 2026, and it reads almost like an apology. I want to tell you where this started for me. A few winters ago, I was sorting through a box of old paper I bought at a house clearance, and inside was the original owner's manual for a 1994 estate car, the thick kind printed on real paper. What struck me was how thin the section on the dashboard was. 2 pages. Every control was a knob or a switch you could find in the dark, and I remember thinking, we used to know something we have forgotten. Everything I am about to lay out you can use with the car sitting on your drive right now. No new purchase. No mechanic. Just knowledge that got quietly buried under a touchscreen. So let me open the drawer and lay the pieces out, one at a time, and let us solve this together. Start with the thing that feels impossible. A new car should be better than an old one. More sensors, more screens, more warnings, more of everything. So why are people who own the newest, most advanced cars on the road, the ones filing complaints, posting regret, and in Britain, actually handing them back within the return window? I went looking for the moment the shape of a dashboard changed, and I found it hiding in plain sight. For roughly 80 years, from the earliest mass-produced cars up through the 2000s, the inside of a car followed one unspoken law. Anything you might need while moving had to be operated without looking. Your hand learned the shape of the heater dial. Your thumb knew where the wiper stalk sat. The radio volume was a knob you could spin with one finger while your eyes stayed on the road. This was not an accident. It was decades of hard-won design wisdom, refined by people who understood that a driver's eyes belong on the road and nowhere else. Then, in a very short span of years, that law was broken. Somewhere around 2012 to 2015, one electric car maker put a giant tablet in the middle of the dashboard, and the rest of the industry watched the stock price and copied it. The buttons vanished. The dials vanished. Climate controls, hazard lights, even the glove box latch on some models got swallowed into a glowing sheet of glass. And the reason given to you and me was that it looked modern, clean, futuristic. But here is the first crack in that story. A screen is cheaper to build than 30 separate physical switches, each with its own wiring and moving parts. A screen can be updated, sold, upgraded, and locked behind a payment long after you have driven the car home. What was sold to you as progress was, from the factory side of the desk, a cost cut and a new way to keep charging you. You paid more and got less that your hands could actually use. Now I could tell you that touch screens feel worse, and you could say that is just my opinion, an old man missing his knobs. So I am not going to ask you to take my word for it. Because somebody actually measured this with a stopwatch on a real road, and the numbers are so stark they made me put my tea down. This brings me to that Swedish test I mentioned, and I want to walk you through it slowly, because it is the clearest proof I have ever found that the old way was not just nostalgia, it was safer by a wide margin. The Swedish car magazine V. Bilägare ran the experiment in August of 2022. They took 11 modern cars, most of them praised for their sleek touchscreen interiors, and they added one more vehicle for comparison. A 2005 estate car, 17 years old at the time, full of ordinary physical buttons. Then they put drivers behind the wheel of each one on a closed airfield, brought the car up to 70 miles per hour, and asked every driver to perform the same 4 simple tasks. Turn on the heated seat, raise the cabin temperature by a set amount, turn on the demister, adjust the radio and reset the trip computer. Ordinary things you do without thinking on a cold morning. In the 17-year-old car with the physical buttons, the driver completed all 4 tasks in 10 seconds. 10. Eyes barely leaving the road, hands finding the switches by feel, the way hands do when a control has a shape and a place. In the worst of the modern cars, a shiny electric model with a large central screen, the same 4 tasks took 44.6 seconds. More than 4 times longer. And here is the part that should stop your heart a little. At 70 miles per hour, 44.6 seconds means the car travels roughly 1.4 kilometers, nearly a mile. A mile of driving while your eyes keep flicking down to a screen, hunting through menus, swiping past submenus, tapping a target that moves as the car bounces over the road. Let that settle. The old, cheap, unfashionable car, let the driver keep their eyes on the road. The new, expensive, celebrated one pulled the driver's attention away for the length of nearly a mile. And every single one of the modern cars performed worse than the 17-year-old one. Every one. So the first clue falls into place. The thing people are returning is not a car that stopped working. It is a car that quietly made a basic task dangerous and called it an upgrade. That solves part of the mystery, but it opens a bigger question, one that kept me up longer than I would like to admit. If the evidence was this clear, this early, why did the whole industry keep marching in the same direction? Why did it get worse instead of better? Because it did get worse. And the reason has very little to do with driving. Let me show you what I mean, because this is where the story stops being about design and starts being about your wallet. For most of the history of the car, once you bought it, it was yours. All of it. Every feature the factory built into the metal came with the price. If the car had heated seats, you had heated seats for as long as you owned it, for free, until the wire wore out. That was the deal. You pay once, you own it, it is yours to keep and to fix. Then somebody in a boardroom asked a different question. What if the feature is already in the car, already built, already paid for in the manufacturing, but we switch it off until the customer pays us again every single month for the rest of the time they own it? I want to be precise here because this is not a rumor. In July of 2022, one of the most respected German car makers began offering heated seats as a subscription in several countries. The hardware was already in the car. The wires were there, the heating element was there, you had already paid for it in the purchase price, but to actually feel warmth on a cold morning, you were asked to pay a recurring fee, somewhere around 18 pounds a month, or a lump sum to unlock it for longer, a part sitting inside your own car that you owned, held for ransom by a line of software. The backlash was so loud that by September of 2023, barely a year later, the company quietly dropped the heated seat subscription and admitted that customers simply would not accept paying for hardware they already had. But do not mistake that retreat for surrender. The idea did not die. It spread. It just got more careful about which features to lock and how to word it. And this is the second, larger clue, the one that reframes everything. The screen was never only about looking modern. The screen is the toll booth. You cannot charge a monthly fee for a physical knob that a person can simply turn. But a feature buried in software, behind a screen, can be switched on, switched off, upgraded, downgraded, and billed forever. The touchscreen did not just replace your buttons. It replaced ownership with rental. It turned the thing you bought into a thing you keep renting from the people who already sold it to you. Now you can feel why the returns are happening. It is not one thing. It is the slow realization that the car you thought you bought is not entirely yours, and that the parts you can see and touch have been traded away for parts that watch you, bill you, and demand your eyes while you drive. People are not rejecting technology. They are rejecting a bad bargain dressed up as the future, and that bad bargain does not stop at the dashboard. The same trick has been run on the finance agreement, on the trade-in value of your old car, and on what a dealer will tell you your vehicle is worth when you finally try to get out. That is why I sat down and wrote what I could not fit into a video like this one. 3 books that take everything you have heard me explain here and turn it into a proper working method. You learn how to judge whether the car on your drive is safer held than sold, how to read a finance offer before you sign it, what to do with a vehicle nobody wants to buy, and how to check whether you are owed money from the finance mis-selling redress without paying a claims firm a penny to do it for you. It is the long, researched version of the instinct I have been handing you today. To get it, scan the QR code right there on your screen, link in the description, pinned comment, then come straight back, because what I am about to show you next is the part that turns this from grumbling into evidence, and it is written into the rules of the road. But here is where I have to be honest with you, because I can already hear the thought forming. It is easy for me to describe the problem. The harder question is what an ordinary person actually does about it, especially if you cannot simply walk away from the car you have or buy a different one this week. And that is exactly what I want to turn to now, because this next part is for you specifically, the person who is thinking, that is all well and good, but I already own the car and I cannot afford to start over. Stay with me, because everything from here uses what you already have. The first thing I want you to understand is that you have more control over that glowing screen than the car maker led you to believe. On most modern cars, buried in the settings, there is a way to turn off the constant flow of notifications, suggestions, and pop-ups that pull your eyes down. The car will not tell you this because a quieter screen is a screen that sells you fewer things. Take 20 minutes, parked, engine off, and go through every menu. Turn off the nudges, turn off the alerts you did not ask for. Turn the brightness down at night so it stops dragging your gaze from the road. You paid for that screen. You are allowed to make it behave. The second thing costs nothing and comes straight from the way our grandparents drove. Before you pull away, set what you need while you are still stationary. Heat, demister, radio station, navigation destination, all of it, chosen before the wheels turn. In the old cars, this was a habit because reaching for controls while moving was awkward. In the new cars, it is a discipline you have to bring yourself, because the machine is happy to let you fiddle at 70 miles per hour. Set it, then drive. It sounds almost too simple. That simplicity is the whole point. The safest drivers I have ever read about, going back to the earliest motoring guides, all shared one rule. Do the fiddly things when you are not moving. Third, and this is the one people forget, learn your car by feel in the driveway. Sit in it with the engine off and practice finding the few physical controls it still has, the ones on the steering wheel and the stalks, until your hands know them in the dark. Every car, even the most screen-heavy, keeps a handful of real buttons, usually the most critical ones. Your hands can learn those in an afternoon. Muscle memory does not need your eyes, and muscle memory is exactly what the touchscreen stole from you. And if you are shopping for a car, new or used, here is the test I now use, and it costs nothing. Sit in the driver's seat, close your eyes, and try to turn on the heat, change the temperature, and switch on the wipers without looking. If you can do it by feel, the car respects the driver. If you cannot, no amount of horsepower or paint will make it safe on a wet, dark motorway. This one test, done in 5 minutes on the forecourt, tells you more than any glossy brochure. Now, I want to give you the part of this that genuinely surprised me, the piece that ties the whole mystery together and that almost nobody has connected out loud. Because so far you might think this is just consumer grumbling, one company's mistake, a fashion that will pass on its own. It is not. Something much bigger has already happened, and it is written into the rules of the road, and it reads like a quiet admission that the old drivers were right all along. For years, if you complained that a touchscreen was dangerous, you were treated as a person who feared progress. The safety scores, the star ratings, the awards, all of them rewarded cars for looking advanced. A car could hide every essential control inside a screen and still be crowned one of the safest vehicles on sale, because the crash tests measured what happens in the collision, not what causes it. And what causes it, more and more, is a driver looking down at a screen for the length of nearly a mile. Then the people who set those very safety standards in Europe looked at the same evidence I have been showing you, and they blinked. In 2024, the European body that assesses new car safety, the one whose star ratings you see quoted in every advert, announced a change that takes effect in January of 2026. From that point, to earn the top 5-star safety rating, a new car will be strongly pushed to bring back physical, hands-on controls for 5 basic functions: the turn signals, the hazard lights, the windscreen wipers, the horn, and the emergency call. 5 things a driver may need in a fraction of a second, taken out of the touchscreen and put back under your fingers where they live for 80 years. Sit with what that means. The highest authority on car safety in Europe is, in effect, telling the entire industry to undo the thing it spent a decade celebrating, to put the buttons back, not because it is fashionable, but because the physical control that our parents used without a second thought turned out to be measurably, provably safer than the glass that replaced it. The forgotten method did not just survive the argument. It won it, on the record, in writing, with a date attached. This is the shape of it, and it is the shape I keep finding in every one of these old methods I collect. The knowledge existed. It was refined over generations by people who did more with less and paid attention to what actually kept them safe and solvent. Then it was pushed aside, not because it stopped working, but because someone found a way to make more money by replacing it. And now, quietly, the evidence forces the world to admit the old way was right and hands it back to whoever was paying attention. Today, that is you. So here is the finale I promised you. The practical secret you can carry out of this video and use this weekend, drawn straight from that Swedish test and that rule change. The lesson those car makers are now being forced to relearn is a rule you can apply to your own driving immediately, no matter what you drive. Any task that takes your eyes off the road for more than 2 seconds is a task you should never do while moving. 2 seconds. That is the threshold researchers keep landing on for how long a glance can safely leave the road. The 17-year-old car passed because every task fit inside quick, blind, 1-second touches. The modern cars failed because a single menu hunt blew far past it. So make your own dashboard, obey the old law. Before you drive, in the 2 minutes you sit there anyway, set your heat, your route, your music, your wipers if it looks like rain. Then, while moving, refuse to touch the screen for anything that takes more than a glance. If you catch yourself hunting through a menu at speed, that is the exact moment the old drivers would have told you to pull over. You do not need to buy a different car to drive like the safest car on that Swedish airfield. You need to bring back the habit the screen tried to make you forget. And there is one more layer I have to leave you with, because it is the part that saves you money as well as your neck. That same instinct, the one that says a thing I can touch and fix is worth more than a thing I have to keep paying for, is why so many of the wisest drivers I have read about hold on to their older, simpler cars far longer than anyone expects. The average car on the road is older now than it has been in decades, past 12 years in many places, and it is not only because of cost. It is because a car with real buttons, real dials, and features that stay on once you own them is a car that owes you nothing every month. No subscription, no locked seat warmer, no feature switched off from a server you will never see. Sometimes the smartest thing you can own is the thing they cannot keep charging you for. Let me pull the whole thread together because I think we have solved it. The people returning their new cars in Britain are not confused, and they are not ungrateful. They are the first wave to feel, in their hands and in their bank statements, that they were sold rental in place of ownership and distraction in place of safety. What I have handed you today is the quiet method the whole industry is now being forced to crawl back toward. Set your controls before you move. Trust your hands over the screen. Never let a task steal your eyes for more than 2 seconds. And treat the features you can touch and keep as worth more than the ones you have to keep paying for. If you feel a small flush of anger reading that, hold on to it, because that anger is the correct response to discovering that something simple and good was taken from you and sold back at a monthly price. You are not a person who fears the future. You are a person who can tell the difference between real progress and a clever way to keep your wallet open, and that instinct is getting rarer and more valuable by the year. Now, I want to hear from you, and I am asking directly, because I know this crowd reads quietly and moves on. Do this one thing for me. Go and sit in your car, close your eyes, and try to turn on your wipers in your heat by feel alone. Then come back and tell me in the comments whether your car passed or failed that test. And tell me where you are watching from, because I am genuinely curious how far this touchscreen problem has spread, country by country. That one comment tells me more than any survey. If you are the kind of person who believes that useful, honest knowledge keeps getting buried to protect somebody else's profit, then you already belong here, and I would be glad to have you with us as we dig the next piece out of the archive. Because the next method I have been quietly gathering is about the little switch hidden in most modern cars that keeps a hidden log of everything you do behind the wheel, who can read it, and the one thing you can do about it this week. I found the first thread of it in a document I did not expect to be public, and once you see it, you will never look at that innocent screen the same way again. Stay with me. Keep your eyes on the road and your hand on the things you can actually touch, and I will see you when I open the drawer again. Before you go, let me tell you where this goes next. Today was the overview. Inside, I walk you button by button through your own dashboard, the exact controls to check. And you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself, never a machine. You'd be joining thousands of Old Ways folks like you inside the Old Ways Society. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel any time, one click, no risk. Now you know why so many people are handing their cars back. But there's something worse waiting for you. Next, I'll show you 12 brand new cars nobody wants, so you don't get stuck with one. It's starting right here.